Some mysteries don't fade with time. They grow sharper, stranger, harder to dismiss. And the late Bronze Age collapse, around 1200 BC, remains one of history's greatest blind spots. Imagine a world of palaces, scribes, international trade, copper and tin crossing seas, kings who sent diplomatic letters like modern heads of state. Egypt, Hatti, Mycenae, Ugarit, Canaan, different peoples, one connected world. And then, like a match dropped in dry grass, everything burned. Cities vanished in fire. Trade disappeared. Writing systems went silent. Population crashed. And somewhere inside that darkness, one name keeps haunting the ruins: the Sea Peoples. Egypt preserved their memory in stone reliefs, strange warriors in feathered helmets, families packed into ships, men fighting on land and sea. Were they invaders, refugees, mercenaries, pirates, or something stranger, a civilization we never wrote down? History claims it has answers, but one clue still defies the story. The story begins. The more we zoom out, the more the ancient Mediterranean feels unsettlingly familiar. An interconnected global economy, states dependent on supply chains, a handful of superpowers believing their system could never collapse. And then, stress, drought, famine, earthquakes, mass migration. Caught in the pressure, kings didn't think creatively. They panicked. The Hittite Empire, gone. Mycenaean Greece, gone. Ugarit, burned before its king's final letter could be answered. Egypt alone survived, but barely, clawing its way through the chaos under Pharaoh Ramesses III. And the inscriptions say it was because of them. An enemy with many names, but one silhouette. Sea-born peoples who arrived in waves. But here's where the puzzle thickens. If this was simply a barbarian invasion, we would expect records of the victors. We would expect settlement patterns. We would expect a trail of continuity. Instead, we get fragments, artifacts without languages, weapons without inscriptions, movements without maps. History doesn't remember them, or history refuses to. A world before the collapse. Close your eyes and imagine the Eastern Mediterranean before the storm. You'd see merchants from Cyprus docking at Ugarit, exchanging metal ingots like currency. You'd see Mycenaean warriors wearing boars' tusk helmets. You'd see Hittite ambassadors writing cuneiform tablets demanding shipments of grain when drought hit. It was cosmopolitan. It was fragile. It was real. This world collapsed in under 50 years. Some have blamed climate. Others point to systemic fragility. But the Sea Peoples endure because they offer a more dramatic explanation. An external enemy, a destroyer, a simple solution for a complex failure. We love that pattern because when a system collapses today, we also look outward, blaming migrants, rivals, competitors. Rarely uncertainty, rarely ourselves. The Pharaoh and the Enigma. Ramesses III carved his memories in relief so future generations would remember his victory. You can almost hear his breathing in the stone. The foreign countries made a conspiracy in their islands. No land could stand before their arms. He claims he crushed them, that Egypt alone survived, that the Sea Peoples were finished. But this triumph hides a strange detail. The reliefs don't show roaming armies. They show families in transit, children, ox carts, women standing behind men with spears. Not conquerors, people abandoning something that failed before they reached Egypt. And here the story tilts, not a horde attacking civilization, but civilization evacuating itself. What if they were us? Civilizations assume permanence. Palaces seem eternal. Literacy feels irreversible. But systems don't announce their expiration dates. They fail in silence until the silence becomes famine. If the Sea Peoples really were climate refugees, displaced warriors, famished farmers, broken kingdoms, then they weren't an enemy. They were the mirror of a collapsing world, not pirates, survivors of a system-wide failure. And that's why one detail in the archaeology doesn't fit the invasion narrative. They used the same weapons as the states they destroyed. Bronze swords identical to Mycenaean models, armor recognizable from the Eastern Mediterranean, construction styles matching the very lands they were said to invade. Armies don't normally dress like their victims, but former citizens do. A world on fire. Imagine a family in Western Anatolia watching trade collapse. For generations, bronze and grain and wood flowed like blood across the sea. Then ships stopped coming. Imagine a young warrior in Mycenae whose palace burned, not by foreigners, but by internal conflict. He is trained, armed, hungry. Imagine a sailor from Cyprus who depended on tin imports suddenly realizing the entire economy has no metal left. What do? They move, they look for food, they sail into storms with their children because standing still means death. And suddenly, every coast sees unfamiliar ships, because the entire world is now unfamiliar. One clue that breaks the narrative. Archaeologists found something strange in the Levant. Philistine pottery that begins as Mycenaean in style but evolves into a hybrid form. That is not the signature of conquerors. That is the imprint of displaced settlers integrating into a new landscape. Their culture didn't overwrite local tradition. It merged. It's a reminder that the Sea Peoples didn't just arrive. They stayed. They learned. They fought. They belonged. In a world on fire, belonging is the only currency left. The question tightens. So what actually happened? A violent invasion? A cascading collapse? A climate-driven migration? Internal rebellions? Or was everything happening at once? Maybe history doesn't fail from one direction. Maybe civilizations collapse like cliffs. Erosion, storm, weight, pressure, and one last crack. But the Sea Peoples defy explanation because we want a villain. A single cause. A conqueror we can point to and say, there, that is the reason. But what if the reason was a network so tight that when one knot strained, the entire thing unraveled? What if the Sea Peoples were the evidence of a global order that forgot how fragile it was? The reflection. This is where the ancient world touches us. Collapses never feel like collapses in the moment. They feel like delays, temporary shortages, political posturing, minor instability, until they don't. We imagine progress as a line moving upward. We assume states get stronger. We assume technology prevents regression. But around 1200 BC, the most advanced economies on Earth ran into one immovable truth. Systems built on assumptions can vanish. Trade collapses when the climate shifts. Governments fail when communication stops. And people become barbarians the moment we lose the archives that define them. Maybe the Sea Peoples weren't a dark force. Maybe they were a last attempt to live. And that's the clue that defies history. They don't fit the role of villains because they were already victims. It's tempting to stare at their reliefs and see violence. The spears, the chariots, the warships. But look again. Look for the children behind them. Look for the wagons. Look for the women carrying household goods. Armies don't bring everything they own into battle. Refugees do. So what really happened to the Sea Peoples? Maybe nothing mysterious at all. Their names disappeared because archives burn, because scribes die, because cultures collapse quietly, and because history records the victors. And this time, there were no victors. Only survivors. Only wanderers. Only people who built anew because they had no choice. So ask it gently. What happens to a civilization when it loses the ability to feed itself? Where do warriors go when their kings stop paying them? What language remains when scribes starve? If those answers feel unsettling, that's because they are modern. In an age of global trade, technological dependence, climate stress, and fragile supply chains, the Sea Peoples might be less of a mystery and more of a mirror. The outrow reflection. Maybe the Sea Peoples didn't destroy civilization. Maybe civilization destroyed itself, and the sea peoples simply carried the memory away. Across the sea, to new coasts, new names, new identities. That one clue, the presence of families, refugees, hybrid pottery, and weapons indistinguishable from local armies, suggests that history's favorite villains were not outsiders challenging the system. They were insiders escaping it. And if that's true, the Bronze Age collapse doesn't have a culprit. It has a warning. Civilizations don't die when enemies attack. They die when systems fail quietly, and when ordinary people realize survival requires movement. The Sea Peoples moved because they had to. We remember them not because of what they conquered, but because of what they lost. So what happened to them? Maybe nothing vanished. Maybe everything transformed. Maybe, somewhere on a quiet coastline in the ancient Levant, families rebuilt their lives, spoke new languages, raised children who never knew the palaces that burned. Maybe the Sea Peoples didn't disappear. Maybe they became the future. And maybe history didn't forget them. Maybe it just renamed them. Subscribe to Timeless Questions YouTube channel to receive more thought-provoking content about history, human nature, and the mysteries of existence.